Hey folks, it's Anne-Marie from LSU CxC, and thanks for spending part of your day with me. Today we're going to go through a few tips for engaging presentations during real-time video conferences. And some of the things we're going to talk about are just tried and true classics for any kind of setting. But for this video, we're also going to include a few tips specific to the process of doing what we're doing right now, except in real time. So we're going to go through 9 tips to get us started. Identify what is actually being asked of you. And this is a smart move no matter what you're doing. But whether this is for a class or for work that you're doing or for a club or organization, ask the person who you are trying to serve what it is they are looking for. Do they really want this to be real time, or can it be pre-recorded? Do they want both? Do they want your face and or the slide deck? Some people only care about one. Do they want any kind of interactive component to be involved in this, particularly for real time? Are they going to be looking for a Q&A section? Are they going to be asking you to incorporate any kinds of polls? Or will they be asking you to do any more open-ended chat prompts in the chat channel on the side? Will they be asking you for any kind of related activities, such as something you might put in a Moodle forum, or a poster, or a paper, or a different kind of recording? These are all great things to know. And then for part 2, for tip 2, it's really valuable if you can keep your audience in the know. And again, tried and true, great practice regardless of the setting that you're presenting in, but particularly as it relates to a video conference like this in a real-time setting, it's helpful to not just share the agenda, but also to let folks know if there's any kind of etiquette they need to be aware of on the front end about their video or their audio. And then specifically, if you have anything in place to plan for any kind of a tech hiccup, let them know that in advance. And at a minimum, simply remind them that if there are any tech hiccups, you're going to take X steps to make sure that they get all the materials afterwards in case something blips out. Tip number 3, unlike a face-to-face setting, you simply can't read the room. You can't get a sense through body language or that sort of ineffable mood, how everybody's responding to what you're delivering. Sometimes it feels like you're just sending it out into the void, which can make you feel extra weird on your end. And it also highlights how very important your oral delivery becomes in this kind of a setting. And this can be everything from making sure that you're checking the tech for your sound and figuring out, is it a microphone like this, like the one that I'm using, that's actually attached through earbuds? Is it my computer mic? But what's going to enable me to come across as crisply and clearly as possible to my audience? And then make sure you check yourself. While I'm sitting in my home preparing this presentation for you, I'm also engaging with the camera in such a way that I hope is making you feel like we're a little bit more in this together than we physically are. And so making sure that you're checking your posture, your tone, your hand gestures, the clothing that you're wearing, all of these components. Keep yourself physically in a space where you are emulating what a face-to-face presentation would entail, because it helps this feel just a little bit more natural. And we've all been through some kind of a presentation where the presenter or ourselves have sort of fallen into these zones where they don't really remember that their camera's on, and their facial expressions or their proximity to the camera, even sometimes their postures, are just suggesting that maybe they're not as in it as they could be. So while you're presenting, make sure that you're modeling what physical engagement looks like, even if we are physically distant. Tip number 4, for your slides, less is more. Again, tried and true for any presentation. But here, I want to talk a little bit more about cognitive overload. What I've got here on the screen for you is just so much text. And while I'm explaining to you that right now your brain is competing between the things that are coming out of my mouth and the things that you are seeing on the screen, you probably couldn't even absorb that because you are reading the things on the screen. And with that, let's think about this for a second. When writing for a smaller visual scale, where text is the foundational piece, like a paper, an essay, even a poster or an email, something that's predominantly text-based in format, you're bound by specific writing conventions. In this medium, you might have longer sentences, you might have complex phrasing, and that really becomes a part of how you demonstrate your ability, your acumen, and your elegance in the format. But when you're in a setting where it's an oral presentation and complementary slide decks, you really need to drill down and remind yourself that for visual text that's a part of a presentation, you should be focusing on what is absolutely vital to visually represent as text, keeping it as concise as possible, and making sure that it's complementing the things that are coming out of your mouth. So you'll notice I wrapped up doing exactly that. This brings me though to my next tip. Keep your script on the side. Your talking points or your script, your agenda, what have you, should not be on the thing that your audience is looking at, because they're going to focus on just reading it rather than the fact that this is actually a tandem presentation. The reality is you're going to say more than what we're going to read on the screen because you've planned this out. You want to keep yourself moving through everything the way that you want to move it through. But again, if you just put all the text up there and treat an audience-facing slide deck as though that's your script, you are getting entirely lost in the presentation. And why is it even a presentation to begin with? It could have simply been a paper or an email, right? Now, I want to recognize here, I've given you a little bit of my behind the scenes. I have the luxury of having a couple of monitors, but if you don't have that luxury, that's okay. Think about a few other low-tech solutions that you might have, whether it's physically writing something out, perhaps you have a printer, or you have another device, a phone or a tablet or something that you just want to have on the side. But whatever you do, keep your script on the side. Tip number 6, when you're prepping your screen shares, think about all of those little transitional moments that you take for granted in a face-to-face setting. I might be in a classroom or in a conference space with someone, and while I'm queuing up my slides, I might be talking, other people are shifting in the room, folks are taking that as an opportunity to just mentally reset themselves. But when you're doing this in a video conference setting, it gets really awkward if you don't think as strategically about what is actually available on your screen when people are beginning to transition into the new idea you're sharing. So for example, this screen right here has a whole bunch of stuff. There's all these extra tabs over on the side that tell you everything that I was doing while I was also supposed to be prepping for this presentation. You can also see my bookmarks. You can see that I recently downloaded something. You're probably really curious about what's going on with this article over here. And you can see a whole bunch of other things in the background too. Things that I was downloading, all of these applications that I have open at the bottom. And so even though I want you to focus on the ideas, everything you're looking at is basically a behind the scenes glimpse of who I am, which isn't necessarily what you want everybody to be experiencing. So when we think about adjusting our materials, take the time to turn off all your desktop notifications, close out your unwanted tabs or your apps, go incognito in your browsers, or at a minimum, close your bookmarks tab. And then do keep any kind of visuals related ready to go if they're not things that are embedded in your slide deck. So for example, over here, these are some materials that I had up on the side thinking, oh, in my real-time presentation, maybe somebody's going to want to know more about LSU CxC. So let me be prepared for that and have those tabs pulled up. Next, I'll shift into a very important tip number 7. Tip number 7 also relates to things associated with a cognitive load and the challenge you have when the things that are happening orally are not matching the things that you're seeing visually. Chances are you might have even had a difficult time absorbing what I just said because the whole time I've been talking, you've been staring at this tip 6 screen thinking, I thought she had already shifted into tip 7. So for tip 7, make sure that everything that they see is intentional. It can be you if there's no other visual, or it can be something that's even a really minimal slide. So for example, let's say you were in a presentation where you had 2 graphics that were very detailed. You spent a lot of time annotating them, mousing over them, going into the details, perhaps it's math or stats oriented, and you're really getting into a micro level for data. then you need everybody to take a step back and flip into a bigger conceptual moment where they're drawing connections, seeing conclusions, and perhaps even approaching a Q&A period. For a moment like that, consider using some sort of slide that shifts them visually into focusing more on you. And perhaps there's a simple prompt question like, why does this matter? What is the relationship between these two charts? What did I just share about those statistics and how this might inform our choices moving forward? And what questions might we put out to the crowd now? Now, I'll tell you, there's some debate in the industry between folks who do presentations who are experts. In a face-to-face setting, you might be very used to using simply a black slide at a moment like this. And in a face-to-face setting, that can be really quite effective. But in a setting like this, when a person sees a black slide in front of them, they might get a little bit concerned that they're having tech issues, which means that for an instant, they're gonna pull their focus away from you and the presentation and into just triple checking that everything's okay. So here, I'm simply suggesting that you use a different visual punctuation in a slide that doesn't have the blackness to it, the blankness to it, so that folks can see this really is still intentional. Now, one of the other things you can do is take a moment and perhaps even just pause your share for a second and not have any kind of visuals and be like, hi, here I am. Let me go ahead and ground you in the points we're making. Sometimes this can be helpful when we're talking more conceptually or we're trying to open up for a Q&A period. How about we just go face to face on this, even if it isn't a video conference setting? So our next point. Do not linger on old slides. Make sure that what you are having them see in front of them is what you need them to be seeing. This can be a minimal slide to foster focus on your oral discussion, or it can be something where you just close out the screen share entirely and let them focus on you. Tip number 8, and this is a big one because so many of us are working in presentations in groups. We already talked about the value of having an agenda or a script planned out on the side. For group work, this is exponentially more important. Consider first your design for your visuals. Are you going to have a shared template, even a shared document that you're working in? Or are you going to have different visuals that complement each other? And then secondly, who has access to those visuals and who is going to deliver them during the actual real-time presentation? And what's your backup plan if the person who was supposed to be delivering visuals suddenly has a tech problem? Who else is going to be able to deliver those visuals in that space? Think too about different roles you have associated with the different buckets of a video conference. We've got the visuals, we've got the person who's talking, but then we also have folks who might take a role reading through the chat channel for Q&A or facilitating the polls and collecting those responses. Because this can carry a heavy cognitive load right here, being the one to deliver. A teammate who can focus 100% on a Q&A period or sending out things like supplementals. Anne-Marie just mentioned this website. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the website in the chat channel for everybody for quick reference. When you can split your team that way and everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, you can really weave in a seamless delivery that helps you demonstrate confidence and competence. And most importantly, the focus can be on the content you're trying to deliver. And then lastly, think about the transitions that you're going to have between your team members. Are you going to build in moments where when we hear somebody say this, we know we have to advance the slide? Or at this moment, I know my job is to take a pause and say, hey Boz, I know you've been checking out our Q&A channel. Are there any questions you want to throw out from the crowd right now? And we can take a moment to address those. So get built into your planning the ways that you want to orally and or visually foster transitions so that your teammates are all on the same page and so that you're doing your best to make sure that you're serving the team. And then finally, practice and practice again. We say this every time because it is vital. This is something, this kind of setting here, you have the opportunity to spend some time before the presentation learning the tech and the tools and figuring out your settings on your end. And then once you figure out those settings, do a practice recording and then watch yourself because you will be your harshest critic. You will also be your strongest champion. You'll identify what you want to improve on. And most often you'll be able to even take those steps to improve upon it. But when you are ready for somebody else, Know that we are here for you, and together we can get this done. So now's the time in a presentation where I would normally tell you about our physical studio locations, the high fives we can give you, the equipment you can check out, and that's obviously not happening in a remote learning scenario. But there's good news. We still have resources available for you. You can go to cxc.lsu.edu where you can access one-on-one customized support for your oral communication, your visual communication, your tech communication, and you can also connect one-on-one with a writing mentor for any kind of material that you're working on, for the class you're currently thinking about or for something beyond your classes. We also have tips for effective communication through cxc.lsu.edu. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see a series of video tutorials that cover a broad gamut of things that might be immediately on your mind right now. Everything from the basics for filming yourself and how to set up your space, etiquette for video conferencing and effective engagement, or particularly for a presentation, the steps you can take from just getting started, what's my content going to look like, all the way through into what is the delivery of this presentation going to be visually, and good oral practices. So when you're ready, reach out and we'll be here for you. And then lastly, again, as you have these questions, please connect with us. We want to hear with you. We want to hear from you, and we believe in you. And we hope that you're taken care of.